Alright, so let's use our text now and pass it to our previous view. To do that, we're going to, again, use the navigator. But instead of pushing a new view, we're going to use pop, which will essentially close the current view and go back to where we were before. And in here, we can give it a result. In this case, we want to give it our text. But we don't want this to go through if it's empty. So what we're actually going to do is check for it. We're going to go here and check it's not empty. So Dart will check for us if this text is empty or not. And if it's not, then it won't do anything. So let's try this out. Let's go here, let's go enter, click save. Oh, nothing happens, nothing happens. But if we click here, something happens. So now we have data and we're passing it back, but we're not making any use of it yet. We need to go here to our main file and we come here to our method, go to new item view where we have our navigator, and what we're going to do is we're going to use the same as you do with Node.js or the languages that have promises or futures, and this is exactly what happens here. So we have a then. So once this view is closed and returns back here, we have something that we can use, and we're going to give it a callback. So here we'll say we expect to receive our title, and we want to add it as a new to-do to our list. So we're going to create an add to-do method. We're going to come down here and say add to-do, and say it expects to receive a new to-do. And all this is going to do is add, well, a to-do. Alright, so now let's give our method here a new to-do item, object I mean, and pass it on the title. Alright, let's see what happens now. If I come here, press, oh, we've got a new item and we can do things with it. Okay, this is cool. But let's see what happens if I press the back button here. Oh, we've got a problem. So what happened was that I clicked back, and this back button does exactly the same thing as our navigation pop did. It is using navigation pop, but it's coming empty, and we're not checking for that. So all we need to do is come here and check if our title is different from no. And this is a one-line if statement. And I'm going to do a hot restart so we can clean up our state because it was polluted with an empty to do. And now if we come here and press back, nothing breaks. But if we add some text, we have a new item, which we can click and we can delete. Alright, looking good. Now, we're missing something here. What is it? We've created a new item. We add a new item to the list, but now we won't be able to edit an item. So let's do exactly that. So we're going to reuse the view we've created before. But to do that, it needs to be able to take some variables in. So let's do that. Up here, we're going to say that we'll take a string, which is the title of the view of the to-do item we want to edit, and let's create a constructor that expects to receive exactly our title. Now we can see that there's a warning here because this is a configuration class. So every variable here needs to be final. They won't be changing. All it's going to do is pass information from our previous view that instantiates our widget. So now we can use our title down here. What we'll do is our text editing controller actually will take the same property that we're using here. We can come here and say, oh, text. And then to access our configuration state and access our title, we can do add widget.title. Now this is a problem because only static members can be accessed on initializers. But there's a way around this. What we're going to do is access our init state here. We're going to do the declaration we're doing here. We're going to leave our variable declaration, but we're only going to instantiate it here once our state has been established and a variable can be assigned. There's a colon here, save this, and I will be able to edit an item. Now, we don't have a way to access this yet, so we're going to create just that. On our list item here, we can add an on long press. And on long press, we want to be able to go to edit item view. Now, this method doesn't exist yet, but I'm going to do something else before we move on, which is once again break this down to make our code a bit more readable. So we're going to do builds list style, which expects a to-do item and returns the list style we had before. Now let's go and create our methods to go to the edit view and come here. Now before, because we were creating a new to-do item, we didn't need to pass in anything, but since we're going to edit one, we need to pass the item. Let's say here that it expects to receive that item. Now, as we've done before, we're going to just copy paste what we have here, navigative context. We're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to reuse this, but now we're actually going to be able to pass it our optional parameter, which is title. So we're going to access our item and pass its current title. Now we can do this, and oh, we have an error. Let's see what it is. Expect an identifier. Oh, this is because we didn't pass this. Alright, so I'm going to pass our item here, give it a straight in commas, it should. Let's check our run, and let's see what happens now. Oh, there we go. We have our item. We can edit it. But if I click save, I actually created a new item, and that's because down here, instead of editing it, I'm actually just reusing the same code. So we need to change this. I'm going to rename it, and now we're going to be passing different things. So let's pass our item, and let's pass the new title. Let's create this method down here, and say to do item and string title. Great. Now all we need to do is go to the item that we're passing down, access its title, and say it's equal to the new title. Now you'll notice that on both the new to do and on edit to do, we didn't have to do set states to see the item show up. And that's because when we do a navigator push and then we do a navigator pop, at the moment of the pop, this code is run. Only after this code is run is the view re-rendered, and because of that we don't have to force it to re-render because it's already happening after our variables have been set, and so we can see the information. So let's see what happens now if this is all correct. We've saved, let's edit item C, and let's change it to D. There we go. And we can delete it, we can change it, and it looks nice. But if I remove all of them, I'm left with an empty list, but it doesn't tell me it's empty. It looks like there's a problem. So let's solve that. Let's come up here and say we have our build body. Let's create a new method here called build empty body. And this is going to return a center, which is a widget that will center exactly vertically and horizontally on our view whatever widget we give it. So we're going to give it a child, and this child's going to be a text saying no items. Okay, so when are we going to render this? So I'm going to do exactly that. Up here, we're going to access our list, and we're going to check the length. Actually, we're going just to check if it's empty. If it's not empty, this is a shorthand if. If it's not empty, we're going to build body. If it is empty, we're going to build an empty body. Oh, it works. But does it work? Let's see. Let's add a new item here. And, oh, it's not showing up. Why is that? This happens because when we delete it, because it's using its own animation onto dismiss, it's actually not re-rendering the whole view. It's only running its animation. So what we'll do is, on our remove item here, we're going to do a little check. So if our list now is empty, we'll do set state. So let's see what happens. I'm gonna add a new item. It works. I'm gonna remove it. We have no items now. Great. Our app is working. We can add new items. Another item. Delete one. Delete the other. No items. Perfect. Our app is saving our items in our new tasks or to-dos, But there's an issue here because we may add new things, but if we actually do a hot restart, as if we were restarting the application, it's resetting all the lists. This happens for two reasons. Well, first of all, it's because we're actually adding them here, and we don't need to do that because we don't want pre-filled items. We're not actually saving this data into the device. To do that, we'd have to use a separate package called shared preferences. It's one of the many possibilities to save information. As opposed to saving locally on the database, we just use the local storage of the device with shared preferences. But we're not going to do this in this video. We're going to save it for the next video as it adds a little bit more complexity. And for now, I think this should be enough to get an overview of what Flutter is able to do in a short amount of time and do something that looks really good, has all the functionality you expect of it, and it just works.